She stood in a room full of cameras, smiling like nothing in the world could touch her. Billions of dollars in her account. A new life built from the wreckage of the most public divorce in history. And on the outside, she looked completely at peace, but here's what nobody was talking about. MacKenzie Scott knew things. Things about Jeff Bezos that the world had never fully heard. Things about the woman he chose over her. Things about what was really happening behind the walls of one of the most powerful marriages on the planet, long before any of us had any idea it was falling apart. And what she knew she never said out loud. No bitter interview, no explosive tell-all, no public breakdown, just silence. But sometimes silence is the loudest thing in the room. So what did MacKenzie Scott actually know? How long had she been watching? And what was really going on inside that marriage before the rest of the world found out? Because the answer isn't what you think, and it will change the way you see this entire story. To understand any of this, you have to go back to the very beginning, before the superyachts. Before the space rockets, before Lauren Sánchez ever entered the picture, MacKenzie Tuttle was a Princeton graduate, a gifted writer. A woman with a quiet, steady kind of confidence, the kind that doesn't need an audience to feel real. She met Jeff Bezos at a hedge fund in New York City. He was her supervisor. She was sharp, focused, and not the kind of person who got overlooked easily. They fell in love fast. Within 3 months, Jeff proposed. Within a year, they were married. And not long after that, the two of them packed everything they owned into a car and drove cross-country to Seattle. MacKenzie was behind the wheel. Jeff was in the passenger seat, dictating the very first draft of what would eventually become Amazon's business plan. Let that image sit with you for a moment. She wasn't just his wife. She was his co-pilot. She was there before the servers, before the warehouses, before the empire. When Amazon was nothing more than a dream and a garage, MacKenzie was already in it, doing the work, carrying the weight, believing in a man the world hadn't discovered yet. She raised 4 children while he built one of the most powerful companies in human history. She supported every risk, every bold decision, every pivot, without ever asking for the credit. Without ever demanding the spotlight. From the outside, they looked like everything a success story is supposed to be. 2 people who started with nothing and built something extraordinary together. But something was changing, quietly, slowly, and then all at once. The more powerful Jeff became, the further his world drifted from the one they had built side by side. New circles. New ambitions that stretched far beyond business. A transformation that was impossible to miss if you were paying attention. And MacKenzie was always paying attention. By 2018, Jeff Bezos wasn't just successful, he was the richest man on Earth. Amazon had reshaped the entire world, and Jeff had reshaped himself. The physical transformation was dramatic, public. Impossible to ignore. The quiet tech founder had become someone almost unrecognizable, and the tabloids had plenty to say about it. But beneath the surface, something else was shifting. Friends who had known the couple for years reportedly started to sense a distance. Not the kind that comes from a big fight or a single dramatic moment. The kind that creeps in quietly like fog settling over something that used to be warm. MacKenzie continued her life, her writing, her children. By every visible measure, she was still standing beside him, but Jeff had moved into a completely different world. Celebrities, media personalities. A social scene that looked nothing like the life they had built together. And somewhere inside that new world there was Lauren Sánchez, a television personality, a helicopter pilot. A woman with magnetic energy and a presence that filled every room she walked into. She and her husband, powerful talent agent Patrick Whitesell, had become part of the Bezos inner circle. Dinner parties, vacations, private getaways where nobody was asking any questions, at least not yet. But what happened next changed everything. In January 2019, the National Enquirer released something that stopped the world cold. Intimate text messages between Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez. Messages that were deeply personal. Messages that made it impossible to pretend this was just a friendship. And just like that, the world exploded. The richest man alive had been having an affair with his close friend's wife. His own wife, people assumed, had no idea. But here's where the story gets far more complicated than anyone was reporting. Sources close to the situation later revealed that MacKenzie had been aware of problems in the marriage for some time. Not every detail, not the full picture, but enough. Enough to understand that something fundamental had already broken. And then came a detail that stunned people even more. It wasn't a journalist who leaked those messages. It wasn't a stranger. It was reportedly Lauren Sanchez's own brother, Michael Sánchez, who handed the private texts directly to the Enquirer. A betrayal inside the betrayal. Someone in Lauren's own family had sold her out. Jeff's response was something nobody expected. Instead of going silent, he went to war. He published a detailed public statement accusing the Enquirer's parent company of blackmail, claiming they threatened to release more intimate material unless he stopped investigating how they got the messages in the first place. It was extraordinary. The most powerful businessman in the world fighting a tabloid empire in broad daylight while his marriage quietly collapsed in the background. And through all of it, MacKenzie said absolutely nothing. The silence was deafening, but the truth behind that silence was far more surprising than anyone realized. In April 2019, Jeff and MacKenzie Bezos announced their divorce. But unlike every other high-profile split in Hollywood history, this one came without a war. No court battles. No accusations dragged through the press. No scorched earth. No revenge. MacKenzie simply walked away, and in walking away, she walked away with approximately $38 billion in Amazon stock. Then she did something that left the entire world speechless. Within days of finalizing the divorce, she signed the giving pledge, publicly committing to donate the majority of her wealth to charity. And she didn't just make the pledge and disappear, she started giving at a pace that had never been seen before. Billions of dollars, wave after wave. To organizations that had never imagined receiving that kind of money, she wasn't just surviving the divorce, she was becoming someone entirely new. Meanwhile, Jeff and Lauren moved fast. Immediately, visibly, publicly fast, they appeared together on yachts at events in photographs that felt almost deliberately designed to be seen. The message was clear. Life had moved on. MacKenzie didn't respond. She had already moved on too, quietly remarried to a Seattle science teacher named Dan Jewett, living a life that looked nothing like the one she had left behind. Two women. One man, two completely different choices about what comes next. But what MacKenzie knew about Jeff, about who he had become, about what really happened behind closed doors, she kept to herself. And that, many say, is exactly where her power lives. Here's what became undeniable as the dust finally settled. MacKenzie Scott was never the victim in this story, she was the witness. She had watched Jeff Bezos transform in real time, watched the ambitions grow beyond anything Amazon could contain, watched a new identity take shape while the old one quietly disappeared. She understood what had happened, perhaps more clearly than anyone, and she made a choice, not to fight, not to expose, not to burn anything down. Instead, she let her actions become the statement. The billions she gave away weren't just generosity, they were a declaration. A public, undeniable proof of who she was, completely separate from the man she had once driven cross-country with a dream in the backseat. Jeff and Lauren got engaged. The ring, the headlines. The spectacle, but something quietly interesting was being reported by insiders. That beneath the very public displays of affection there was tension, pressure. The weight of building an entirely new life inside the world's most watched spotlight. And MacKenzie reportedly never said a negative word, not publicly. Because she understood something most people in her position never could. The loudest statement she could ever make was the one she was already living. Today, MacKenzie Scott has given away more than $16 billion. No press releases, no ceremonies, no boards deciding who deserves it. Just money moving quietly into the world, doing extraordinary things. Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez married in a lavish, star-studded ceremony covered by every major outlet on the planet. And yet, it's MacKenzie's story that people keep returning to. In a world obsessed with revenge and public takedowns, she chose something harder. She chose to become someone bigger than the story that was written about her. What she knows about Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sánchez, she may never fully say. And somehow that's the most powerful thing of all. So what do you think? Was MacKenzie Scott the most composed, most calculated, most quietly powerful person in this entire story? Could you have handled it the way she did? Or do you think there's something she's still holding back, something the world hasn't fully heard yet? Tell me in the comments. I want to know exactly where you stand on this. And if this kind of story is what you're here for, the real stories, the ones behind the headlines, the ones that actually make you feel something, then hit subscribe right now. Because what's coming next is going to be even bigger than this. Don't miss it.